Alrighty, take two. We literally just, for everyone listening, recorded this podcast.
Yosef's lying. It's take 50.
I mean, 45 minutes of it was awesome, and then it just got deleted. I mean, the Zoom over here, the memory card ran out. We didn't realize. So this is take two, filming this today.
Yeah, a little better actually. The sun's not in my eyes.
Yeah, the view
not blinding me.
The view's also nice here. So the objective for today is going to be sales. For anyone who is in sales, trying to close contracts or sell a product or a service, whatever that is. And I'm here speaking with Shimmy, who has almost 5 years of a sales experience. And in my opinion, he's very good at it. And we're here to discuss how people can do it, the gimmicks, the pros and cons, I guess, of sales. And so I guess I'm going to start off with saying I recently launched a security company, YMW Security. I've been in the firearm space for a while now, doing competitive shooting. Got all my certifications, finally got my license, and launched a company here in Florida. So focusing heavily on, thank you. Yeah. Focusing heavily on with my partner, closing contracts, taking over contracts. People are overpaying for security, and they're not getting the best service. So that's what we're trying to focus on. But what I've been facing is when I call a school director, I call a property owner for armed or unarmed security, they're kind of like, hey, we already have a contract. Sorry about the dog in the background, guys. But they're like, hey, we already have a contract. We already have a security provider. We're not interested. Pretty much have a good day. So how do you deal with that rejection? And then how do you keep them on the phone?
Gotcha. So most of the time, you have to understand that sales is a dance. And no one wants to be sold. You don't want to be sold. You go to the mall, you're browsing a store. A sales lady comes over to you like, oh, you're looking for something in particular. We have other sizes in the back. Like, you're kind of like, bug off, And it's the same with phone call sales. So most of the time, people are going to take a defensive stance. Very rarely is someone going to be super open and receptive to what you're calling about. You caught them off guard. They're in the middle of their day. Even if there's someone who's accustomed to getting sales calls, most of the people you're calling are probably getting a few calls a day. You're probably not the only one. But that's kind of the defensive stance, and it's not something you should take personal. In general, you shouldn't take anything in sales personal, especially not the rejection, as hard as that is. But definitely if it comes in that form of someone saying, hey, we're not interested, or, we're kind of busy right now. This is not something we're looking at this moment. Or, the most classic response you'll get is, we're all set. All these things are very ambiguous. It doesn't really give you much clarity on what's going on. Is the guy not interested in general? Is he not interested ever? Is he not interested in this minute? Is he not interested in the two tidbits of sale that you gave him? Like, it's just, that just proves that it's just a defensive stance. And it's not necessarily something that should discourage you from ever reaching back out to that guy again. So your question is how to go about that, right? So that's kind of the mentality.
So what I'm dealing with is my personal situation is like the school director will be like, hey, thank you so much for reaching out. I appreciate you calling, but we're good. We have security. We don't need you. Pretty much goodbye.
Right.
So how do you keep them on the phone, or how do you say, like you were saying, like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, follow up, getting their email without sounding too pushy, because it's uncomfortable, right? So how do you make yourself not feel uncomfortable, like for the mindset, and then also how do you nonchalantly go about building the rapport and then getting their email to follow up later?
Gotcha. So definitely training yourself in realizing that until there's a no, there is no, right? And no one's ever saying no, but like until then, it's not really a no. So what you want to do is you want to keep open the door, and keeping open the door doesn't necessarily mean on this phone call. Like I said earlier, in the previous one that got deleted, most of the time sales does not happen on that sales call. Not most of the time. It never happens on that first call. It's always going to happen, even if the call goes well, on those rare cases. It's never going to, there's not much that happens on that first call. At best, you're setting a meeting. At best, the guy tells you, send me an email and I'll respond back with some information so you could, analyze or whatever it is that you're analyzing. So even if someone says that they're not interested, or they don't have the bandwidth, or they're swamped with other projects right now, you want to keep your foot in the door, and the best way to do that is really to say like, hey John, that's totally fair. I caught you off guard. Let me do this. Can I get your email really quick? Would it be reasonable if I reach back out in a month? See where you guys are at that point. Most of the time, the guy is going to give you his email, because you allowed him to come out of that defensive stance, and you're not really selling him anything. You're not pushing anything down his throat. You're just asking for an email. An email is innocent. He's behind a computer. He doesn't have to answer the phone and have some uncomfortable conversation. At worst, you're gonna just bombard him with emails, and he'll what's it called? Where you block? He'll block you. Yeah. And the trick is, and I really believe this. I heard this concept in science and in just like psychological science, if that's a thing, where like if you want to get someone to like you, I think it's in How to Influence Friends and whatever, that famous book
by Dale Carnegie.
Dale Carnegie, yeah. Might be misquoting this, but the principle still stands that if you want to get someone to like you, you want to get them to do something for you. And there's many ways to like manipulate or trick someone into thinking that, into giving you something, whether it's a piece of advice. And the science behind that is when are you helping someone, when are you giving someone advice? It's usually when you like the person. You wouldn't be giving your enemy advice, right? You don't want you don't want to steer them in the right direction. So, if you're trying to like chummy it up with a guy who has no reason to have any relationship with you, ask him for advice on something. Very often people feel good about giving advice, and when they're giving advice, subconsciously, they're kind of telling their brain, hey, this guy is a good guy. I like this guy. And even though it's them giving something, because you only give to someone that you like. So I think that really applies to the email piece, asking for a guy's email, right? People might think this sounds nuts, like it's just an email, like come on, why are you complicating this? It's not a science. But I really think it's a way to keep the door open by just having them give you something, and you got permission. They gave you their email, and even if you have it, you should always ask them for it.
You're saying it's a big difference if someone gives you their email and you propose to them whatever you're trying to sell, versus you just
having their email
online. You're just a random
100%.
Versus like he knows you gave you that email, he knows you had that phone call, and you're like, hey, I know you currently have security or whatever the contract is, and next time your contract's up, if you think about us, or we offer XYZ, kind of like that, kind of just propose on your websites, and how you think you can help them more, your proposition of value, your how you can bring their costs down, like all that type of stuff. You should just send in the email.
Yeah, 100%.
So can we role play like an example? Right.
For sure. So let's say in your example you just mentioned, you call someone, they say they're not interested. They either they're happy with their vendor, or it's not a time that they're looking.
Like Shimmy, hey, thank you so much. I'm not interested. We have security. We love them. They're great.
Okay, great. Well, Yosef, that's totally fair. I caught you off guard. Would it be reasonable if I, send you an email? Can I get your email real quick? I'll send you some information, and maybe I'll follow up in a couple of weeks, see where you guys are at, and kind of gauge, whether it's a couple of weeks, couple of months. If you kind of feel like the guy's not going to, you could have a sense of whether he's going to be interested in listening to you in a month from now, or whether he needs more time. Sometimes. And sorry?
And let's say I say, hey, we're happy. There's no need. I don't waste your time.
If he says that?
Yeah.
So at that point, he wouldn't. If he's really nice, he'll take the time to say that. But most of the time, they'll either give you the email, whether they want to get off the phone or not, or they'll just hang up on you. If they're really not interested, they'll hang up on you, and that's when like, okay, this is like it's not necessarily a dead lead, but it's a dead lead.
Is it something you would follow up in like a month or 2 months or 6 months?
I wouldn't put it on my list, but I wouldn't put it on my list to follow up, but there's no rule to that. Like, you could be surprised. You could call the guy back up in a month. He has no clue. He was just in a pissed off mood, or something happened in the interim with his current vendor that warrants him to want to look into a new service or competitor, and things could change all the time. I haven't personally had this example happened to me, but there were other sales guys in the company I work for that, people cursed them out on the phone, and like a year later they closed their entire portfolio for whatever service.
Interesting.
Not to get into
details.
not to get into details. So definitely happens, but Yeah, not to go off on tangent. What were we
We're
talking about?
discussing like simply like when you're dealing with rejection, right? Like I call someone, I'm trying to offer them my services and how I can, do X, Y, Z for them and help them save money, etc., etc. And they're like, hey, I understand we already have someone serving us, whatever that thing might be, So you're saying like, oh, totally get it. So this is what I should do. Like, hey, totally get it, totally understand. Maybe I caught you at a bad time and you seem to be happy, but figured if you can send me your email, that'd be great, and maybe I'll follow up in a few months if that's okay with you. That's kind of how you would go about it?
Yeah.
To keep that?
And then they'll give you the email. You just send them an email. You could follow up a week later, a month later, whatever you feel is like makes sense. There's no right formula to that. But then on your follow-up call, and don't view that as like what's the word? That's not a bid'diavad necessarily, because like I said, most of the time you're not closing anything on the first call. The first call is still that place of like defensiveness where the person's like, hey, I don't want to be sold. I'm not easy. You can't just like sell me on every product and every service. But at the end of the day, some time that they're giving you on the phone, just giving you the email, that is time that they're giving you.
Interesting.
And they might not know
why
it.
are people so defensive on the phone? Do you think it's because they think that most people are just trying to scam them, like because of all the Indian scammers, and like even when someone calls me on the phone, I'm just like, I want to get off right away. Like I just feel like it's a scam, or I'm like they're trying to swindle.
So there's that. There's two types of things that they're scared of. They're either scared of a scam or they're nervous of being sold on something or having to like open up Pandora's box and like do a lot of work that they can't deal with right now. If they think you're a scam, then you're a terrible sales guy. Meaning you should be able to, within the first 10, 15 seconds, very calmly explain what you're calling about and, put down that wall of scam. And it's not like you're the only person calling about a service or software that you're trying to sell. So they should definitely never think you're a scam. Like if you're getting people, if people are hanging up within the first second, every single time you get on the call, they probably think you're a scam, but that just means your pitch is not refined. Your like initial pitch. But you will get a lot of, people who are defensive about being sold on something. And, you're asking why that is. It could be, plenty of reasons. It could be, they're having, literal fires or not hypothetical, metaphoric fires to put out at their properties or in their business, and they can't really deal with, trying to cut costs and change vendors just to get a cheaper price or, better service.
And then I remember last time we were speaking, you said that we shouldn't, or anyone in sales shouldn't necessarily like harp on the idea of like price. Like, oh, we're going to save you money, because the people can take that as like, okay, how am I going to get the same service for half the price, right? So you should also focus it on how we can better serve you and how we can improve your operations and improve your whatever that might be, right?
Right.
So how do you go about doing that usually when you call people? I mean, let's say you were in security, for example.
So how would I pitch security?
Yeah, let's say just give that, just keep it on that, so we don't get too much into.
So I would try to figure out what the pain points are of the person. You have to know who you're calling, right? So let's say you're calling a CEO or a director of operations. You get a feel after, especially when you close a sale. And the more sales you close, obviously, the easier it gets. But you have to get a sense of what are the things that the person who handles buying my service, what do they deal with on a day-to-day basis, and how do they view a vendor like me? And when you do that, you're able to much easier, hit the pain points. You ever read a good billboard where you're like, oh my God, that's a 6 sales line. And most of the time it has nothing to do with price, right? If these guys are overwhelmed because they want to grow their business or they want to move on to the next project and they're constantly getting bogged down because their security guards at their facilities are never showing up on time, or they're showing up on time but they're under the influence or whatever it is, so you want to make sure to hit those pain points.
So how would you, just to like role play, just to learn here, because like I said, everyone listening to this podcast, what I try to do is have on people who are good in their field, so I can sit there and learn with them. You guys can learn with me as I ask questions. And like, how would you, let's say you're calling up a school right now, right? And you're trying to provide security for them. They currently have a contract of whatever it might be. So how would you start that cold call? Let's say the guy's name is Jake.
Okay.
Friend gave you his number. He's the director. So how would you go about that?
Okay, it's a tough one because I can't really think of them on the spot. It's kind of something I craft after I do it a couple of times.
Well, like in general, like I want to know
Yeah.
like the do's and don'ts of like where it's like if you go too quick to your pitch or you try to be friends too much. Like
Sure.
what's a smooth professional way on getting to the value proposition on a sales call?
So what I like to do is not to put the value proposition in first on the sales call, but to first go into like the first couple of seconds, kind of build credibility. And you might ask, like, how are you building credibility before explaining what you're calling about, right? Shouldn't you tell them what you're calling about first and give your value proposition and then give your credibility? And I would say no, because I think you want to get the defenses down as low as possible, and you want to hook them. And the way you hook them is by, like what I do is I just name drop a couple of companies I'm working with in the area. You might need to do a little more research to, find those companies that the person you're calling may know. Because if you're just name dropping random stuff, I mean, that could work too. But,
So they feel like, okay, this person already services similar facilities, like
like you're calling a school, right? Or a nursing home facility is a great example. They get like fined by the government, whatever. I don't know how it works, by the state. Like tags or whatever. You need to be in compliance. So if you're calling without saying that you work for other nursing home companies or facilities or assisted livings, they're just right away like nervous. Like, okay, like, great. I need someone who understands my industry and understands, the looming threats of getting fined, and I need to make sure that's not going to happen. So like, and this is all happening within a split second. The decisions they're making whether to listen to you or not. So you definitely want to come in and say like, hey, we're working with these and these facilities all over the state. That's why I figured I would reach out. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. If you're not happy with your current services, or if you like to see a different setup, our whole goal here is really to alleviate any headache that you guys have within, let's say, the realm of security.
Let's say they kind of say like, hey, we're not interested. We have great security, or we have great whatever it is, cleaning contracts. Like, we're happy with our vendors. Like, how do you push there and try to still give them that offer, or meet them in person, or get that email and continue the conversation without sounding like pushy, like, hey, like I told you I'm not interested, I told you I'm happy with my current server. So how do you, like, have you ever dealt with rejection like that when then you end up closing them? Like, what did you do to keep the conversation flowing without being like an annoying salesperson? Because nobody likes that guy.
Right. So you're calling me, you're trying to pitch me on something. I'm happy with our current vendor.
Yeah.
So when I'm telling you I'm happy with our current vendor, I'm kind of like picture me pushing you away and kind of going like, I'm fine. Like, I don't need you, right? So instead of you taking my hand and pushing it back and being like, but we're cheaper, but we're better than the other guy, but we, I don't know, whatever.
Like, no.
You sound nudgy, and even if you say that in a normal tone, you sound nudgy. So what you want to do is kind of pull their hand in and kind of give them the impression that you're agreeing with them. Like, maybe it's not a right fit. But like I said, I would always go back to the email. Like,
but just send your email.
Yeah, maybe this is not a good fit right now, or maybe if you're happy with your current vendor, that's totally fair. How about this? Let me just you're kind of changing the tone when you say like, how about this? Let me just send you a quick email. You never know if something could come up. Maybe I'll follow up in a month from now and see if you guys are interested at that point. To explore other options. I really think we speak to a lot of similar facilities, and we come in like 20-30% cheaper. So if you could have the same service, better customer service, and get it at a fraction of the cost, would you be against that? And typically they'll say no. And yeah.
And then when you get that email, you just go follow up like we talked about before.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess like what I had on the phone today actually. So I called up a school, and I don't like being pushy. That's what I don't like about sales. Totally new to it. Like, I literally started a week ago doing the whole sales thing, but it's really taught me a lot. We'll get into how I've learned to lean on God more, and everyone in sales, learns to lean on Hashem more, and kind of like, you feel like, okay, I'm doing the best of my ability, but it's really up to you. And obviously you have to go through the motions, right, and do what you can. But the guy was like, hey, we're happy with what we have. Not really interested. Thanks so much. And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, oh okay, understood. Thank you. I was like, all right, bye. Like I was totally a rookie on that call, and I didn't kind of do any follow up or kind of just ended it there.
So sometimes it's out of your control. If the person's really not interested in it just is what it is. Move on to the next. There's plenty of fish in the water. Always remember that. But very, very often, it depends on the tone you started the call on, right? I've had calls where, and I don't know this as a fact, but I really feel that this is true, that if I were to come into that call with a better energy and more confident energy, they would have stayed on the phone longer. So they may have picked up and said within like 5 seconds, 10 seconds, yeah, we're not interested, we're ready to work or so on or whatever. But it was kind of because I came in with a tone, like kind of like a lazy-ish tone, or like my mind wasn't focused, and I was stuttering with my words.
Where you kind of like speak slow and like.
Yeah, I mean, be yourself. Don't fabricate something. But it's kind of like working out. Everything needs to be with proper form. There needs to be intention. You can't just be, there are people who do 200 calls a day and they get nowhere. It's just volume game for them, but it's like automatic. Like it's
So
kind
what
of
you're
like
saying is more sales volume is not necessarily better.
No. Yes, I'm saying that.
Like interesting, because most people say, "Hey, do 100 calls, and maybe you'll close one client at 1%." So just
Yeah,
do
look,
1,000 calls,
the more
and
calls
get,
you do, the bigger net I guess you're spreading. But you have to be mindful of your net being worn out. Then, like, it's not a perfect analogy, but you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I definitely think that making less calls with more intention. If you could do many calls with intention and well-researched leads and all that stuff, then yeah, sure. But there's limitations to the time you have in a day, and the energy you have, and you might want to put a little more energy into researching who your target client is, and not just like getting these lead lists from some guy who emailed you with tons of irrelevant people, and they're not the decision maker. It's very easy to find out these days on LinkedIn or just online on the company's website what these people do, what their responsibilities are, and based on that, reaching out to the right guy and cutting all the crap out.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I guess 2 other topics. We're gonna do a quick ad before, but 2 other topics I wanted to hop into is like the YouTube sales guys, like the Elliots, the Daniel G's, and all those people who kind of teach you like carsman salesmanship, like strategy of like super high energy. Like they have all these what are they called, like scripts that they follow on rejection. They have books on how to deal with rejection. And like I'm curious, someone like you who actually deals with sales, like what you think is valuable, what's not valuable. And then also we want to talk into the aspect of God and the aspect of Hashem, of the beauty of sales and why it's not limited in a way, not like a salary in a way, like it's not limited. But so for everyone listening, this show is sponsored by YMW Security. If you need your school, your HOA, your synagogue, your multifamily or nursing home property having an armed to unarmed security, we offer all those services, including AI cameras, AI monitoring. We have TrackTick, and we have the latest technology. We are extremely competitive with pricing, and we take pride in our service. So if you'd like to reach out to YMW, go to ymwsecurity.com. I'll put my email below, which is y.manacheri@ymwsecurity.com. And we would love to serve your property, love to give you guys a proposal. We deal strictly here in the state of South Florida. So if you do listen to this podcast, let us know you saw it here. We'll give you a special discount. Thank you guys, and let's get back to the show. So Daniel G, right, and the Elliots, right? You said recently you tried out one of these sales tactics, like we talked about this before, where you tried this tactic where one was like, you start the call off and you're like, hey, I'm about to hop into a meeting in 20 seconds. I don't have much time, but I have a special offer. Like it's kind of like positions you at a higher place, but you were saying how that's kind of like it's just like it doesn't necessarily work when you're dealing with like important people who run properties. They're just gonna hang up on you. Like, who's this guy who's calling me saying, "Hey, I got 10 seconds." Like,
yeah.
But like, where would that work? Like, because I guess some of their stuff does work, and then we'll get into like the spiritual energy and like the emotional, like the discipline of like just being relaxed and controlled behind the phone and how that actually works in calls, and go deeper on that topic. But yeah, what do you think about that?
So my experience with these guys, and I've definitely, had my phases where I'm listening to them, or every once in a while it just comes up on my feed. And they do have good things to offer. I do think when it comes to like exact scripts or when it comes to exact scripts, I don't think they're that much on the money. I could be wrong. I don't know sales in every industry. You know, I know Andy Elliott's very big into training car sales people, and you know, people who go door to door selling solar panels or window washing.
Like,
yeah, that's very different.
You gotta close them now.
It's very different. I'll say I kind of like Daniel G more than Andy Elliott, and the reason being is I feel like Andy Elliott is teaching the guy who doesn't necessarily have good sales intuition, or like a robotic pathway of how to navigate objection, which could be good. But I feel like Daniel G, what he does is teaches you a little more about like the back end work, not necessarily on the sales itself. And I think that's his better advice. So when he comes in and tells you a script, like that aggressive stance of hey, I only got 20 seconds, you know, before I send you an email, I just wanted to let you know about it. Click, you know, the guy hangs up on you like, you just called me out of the blue. What do you mean you have 20 seconds? And I tried it and I got hung up on 2-3 times in a row. So, but like I said, what Daniel G I feel like offers is a lot of the mental, frame of mind you need to be in to be successful in sales, and I think he does that pretty well. You know, how to not take rejection personal, how sales is really a spiritual game, how a lot of the fruits you see in the sales itself come from work you do outside of sales. You know. And that's another thing. Like these guys are all in shape. They all seem pretty disciplined. You know, if you follow them throughout their life, not just while working. You know, these guys go for. I think Daniel G goes for like a half marathon run every Sunday in the heat in South Florida. Like these guys are grinders. You know, and I think that's one of the most important parts of sales is changing the energy of who you are, because the more disciplined you are and the more trusting you are in whether it's God or in the process and in yourself, the less desperate you're going to be, and the more you're going to convert those calls into actual sales. I think that's a lot more important than memorizing scripts and knowing how to verbally overcome objections. I think that's important, but like I said, I think the prior is more important.
Yeah. It's deeper. It's more like emotional fortitude or emotional energy.
Yeah.
With the sales.
Yeah.
Interesting. Like another thing I want
because
to discuss
a lot of it is, especially like. I think a lot of this sales stuff is very intuitive if you're tuned in. So if you're not tuned in, you need to memorize a script. But if you're tuned in to like how humans work and what they want to hear, like and you're in a good place, I don't know if I'm making sense or I'm sounding too heechy-beechy, but you'll make that call and you'll automatically say the right thing. You'll automatically have the right cadence in your speech. You'll have the right like emphasis on certain words. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but also I'm assuming it takes repetition, right? It takes doing it for a while, not like even if you have a good emotional strength. Or
right,
energy,
for sure. It's a mixture. It's definitely a mixture of both.
Your first week on doing sales, you'll probably be stuttering on the phone.
Right.
Right.
It's definitely a mixture of both. Yeah. So it's good. It's definitely good to know these tricks, the scripts, but not to take it literally, because it doesn't necessarily apply to your industry. But it's good to know the knowledge that's out there and try them out for yourself, But yeah, I like I said, I think the biggest value those guys bring is just, the mindset you need to be in as a sales guy and to be successful doing so.
Okay, interesting. And then the last thing I wanted to discuss, just want to check if it's still recording, because it literally went off on us before.
Yeah, we're still good. We're at 29.
29, perfect.
Yeah.
So the last thing I want to discuss is I guess everyone who is in sales, the beauty of sales, right? And understanding that it's not like a salary. Like let's say someone has a salary job, like we discussed earlier, making $100,000 a year, let's say, they have to work their hours, their 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, whatever their hours are. And it's like, as long as they get what needs to get done and they're in the office on time, like they're going to stay in that company. They'll probably get a little bit of increase every single year and get bonuses. So it's almost like, you know, religiously speaking, right? For, you know, everyone who's religious is like, you feel like it's harder to feel like God is the one giving you the money, because you're like, look, I'm putting in the hours. I got this job. I got this degree that got me this job. I'm showing up every single day. I'm doing my tasks. So yeah, I get my paycheck. It's the same every month. It's X amount of dollars. And it's hard to feel like, oh my God, like, you know, like God's giving it to me, because you're like, I'm showing up every day. It's just kind of like the same rinse and repeat every day. But like with sales, it's like you can make zero that month, or you can close a big contract and make a lot of money that month, right? So it's like every time you're on a call, you're like, okay, like, God, please, I'm going to do all my job list. I'm going to do all my effort to get this done. And it's like you almost lean on him, and you can have that energy of like, look, if you want this to work out, it's going to work out. And it kind of keeps you closer to God. And like, because you're like, I can't do this. Like, this is up to you. It's in the air, versus like, you know, you're going to get that paycheck, but, you know. So I'm curious what you think about that, being that you've been in sales for a while.
Yeah,
do you like that? Do you not like that? Like, people like the paycheck, some people don't like the paycheck.
I wonder what came first for me. You know, like I feel like I was always that type of person, you know, kind of like pleading to God for something to work out. I wonder if because of that I went into sales, or like it felt more natural to me. But I wouldn't understand how someone could be successful in sales without having that. Like I don't see how you could overcome the rejection and the
well, someone could be like, it's not God. It's someone saying, let's say someone doesn't believe in
it's
God.
a higher energy.
It could be like, hey, it's my discipline. Just like I go to the gym, I show up, I do it. It's just a numbers game. 1% of people are going to give me, are going to close, and I'm just going to do
That's
more
possible.
numbers, right? So
yeah, for sure.
You could also do sales and not do
100%.
that. Right? But if you're religious, you're gonna feel that more.
Yeah.
Right?
So what's your question?
No, I guess you feel a connection to Hashem more when you're doing sales. Of like, wow, like
100%.
You know, it wasn't necessarily my doing. It was, yeah, I did the work and I did what I could do and I did the best of my ability. But like, do you think you're more connected to God and more thankful because you're in sales versus if you just had a salary every month, the same amount?
Yeah, I think. Look, I've had salary jobs before, and I feel like you know, the way salary jobs are structured doesn't really incentivize necessarily 100% of your giving it your all, whether it's your consciousness or your actual like work that you're doing. Reason being is because most people are not going to fire you and put in the time to hire another person, you know, unless you're bad, you know. So even if you're just putting 80%, 75% of your effort into something, you'll be fine. When it comes to sales, it's not like that. Most sales jobs are just paying you a commission if they're smart about it. And you're only going to make that if you're actually, you know, your sales don't lie. Your clients don't lie. You know, if you're good, you're going to close people. If you're not, you're just not. I remember when I started, I had Post-it stickers of the words Eina Milvada just plastered around my screen. I actually made the background on my screen on my old computer. And I had to literally hold on to that every day because I was nervous. Looking back, what am I nervous about? You know, now bigger things make me nervous. But back then, just even calling an administrator at a nursing home and pitching them the idea was like, oh my God, like this person in Texas might hang up the phone on me and like I'll feel like crap about it. Doesn't, you know. But back then I had to hold on to God. But you always have to hold on to God in this industry. Like, you know, you're always excited about the deals you have in the pipeline, and you don't know if they're going to close or not until they close. And even if they close, you don't know if like everything post closing is going to go smoothly, where you actually get paid. Yeah. So also you recognize in sales that it is all about your energy and you know, you could show up to an office job in a bad mood, but you can't show up to a sales job in a bad mood. It's just not going to work. Yeah, like if you could have an ongoing dialogue with a client for a couple of weeks, and then comes to closing, you have that last meeting and you just screw it up because you're just you you don't seem excited about the product, or you know, they get a bad vibe from you, and then they might not even pinpoint it on that, but somehow like behind closed doors internally they're not vouching for your product or for you because you didn't show up on that last meeting. So you kind of always got to go. You have to always come in with that humility and that, that understanding that it's not up to you, that you're not in control. You need to do whatever you can do, but like ultimately it's up to God. But one thing I'll say is, I think for a long time in my personal life, I felt like, the bracha or the blessing or the deal could only come in if I deserve it. And I had my own criteria in my head of what that meant. Like for some people it could be minyan or learning or, whatever it is for you. And I think the healthiest thing to do in the the thing that's most aligned with, like, let's say manifesting, is that you believe in a God that could reward you no matter what. And even if you're not deserving of it, he's so big. And that's the beauty of sales. Like, you could close the biggest deal, and obviously the bigger the deal, the more lucky you're going to get to close it with less skill, but it's possible. And and it's going to be infinitely more possible if you believe in a God that's willing to reward you. And you could go from zero to making $1 million a year in sales, just because you believe it's possible and you believe God wants to give that to you. Because why not you? Why not?
Awesome.
You don't have to deserve it.
Oh, very cool. So I guess we're definitely going to do a round 2 of the podcast. Anyone who wants a round 2 on sales, drop a comment below on YouTube.
Yeah.
Or on Spotify, you can drop comments also.
Little disclaimer. Can I give a disclaimer?
Go ahead.
All this is just my experience in sales. I'm not coming to say this is what sales is, or these are the tricks, and this is just my experience and what's worked for me. Different personalities have different ways of going about things, and just wanted to put that out there.
100%. Like, you can speak to 5 different sales guys, and you have one guy says, no, this is the way. One guy says, no, that's the way. Everyone has their way and what works for them, and every industry is different. Every industry
100%.
has different things that apply. But if anyone has any specific questions on sales for their industry, whatever it is, we can do a second podcast. So leave a comment below. Also, like and subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything, and it helps this channel out tremendously. And before we tune out, we put out a podcast every single Wednesday. Drops at 9 a.m. Eastern time. And if you need your property, if your property needs security, if you're a manager, you're a school director, you're a property owner, and you want armed or unarmed security, reach out to YMW Security. You can go to ymwsecurity.com to learn more, and we'd be very happy to service your property and see how we can improve everything and bring down your costs. Thank you guys for listening to the episode. Hope you found it interesting. And thank you, Shimmy.
Thank you, Yosef.
Appreciate it.